and I feel good about it. Thank you, Frankenstein. It's amazing. This is why I love reading. It is September 4th. It may be a little bit early to start reading the Halloween books now, but I have 11 books. Hello, I've just come from editing this video, this very video that you are watching right now. My original plans for this video have changed. I had originally planned to read these 11 books, but some of these books are not available at my local library, so I had to rearrange some things, and while I was rearranging my list of books, I decided to make it a nice even 13 because 13 is a nice spooky number and this is a Halloween reading challenge after all. So now I'm reading these 13 books. Since 13 is a lot of books to talk about in one reading vlog, I've decided to split it up into 2 different videos. You are currently watching part 1. Now back to the video. Right, the last book on this list I have already started and I'm already really liking. This book is called Lobizona. It's about an Argentinian girl who has immigrated to the US. She and her mother are here and they are undocumented. But twist, that's not the spooky part. The spooky part is she is also a werewolf. So far, most of the book that I've read has to do with her living in the US as an undocumented immigrant, just how scary that can be. And I've just been thinking about how, like, a story like this with this fantastical element of her being a werewolf, having that element makes the book interesting to a lot of people that might not otherwise pick up a story about an undocumented immigrant. And I like that. I think that's very cool because it's just making it more accessible. Late last night, like I said, we went to my parents' house. I did get Frankenstein and a book called Mary's Monster about Mary Shelley, her life leading up to her writing Frankenstein. I started reading that last night. It's a really beautiful book. It has a lot of pictures in it, and so I think I'll probably be able to finish that tonight. I'm still reading, still loving Lobizona. Yeah, that's my update. I finished Mary's Monster last night. I really like how it was done, how it like gives insight into Mary Shelley's life and who she was and what things were like in her world at that time, and I feel like it was very well researched and executed. It's just very nice, and I'm excited to read Frankenstein with her story and background in mind. I'm still reading Lobizona. I was able to pick up the physical book from the library yesterday, so I started reading the book itself this afternoon. I also picked up the Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman, so that's probably going to be my next book. I know it looks like it's the same day because I'm wearing the same sweatshirt, but it is not. It is a new day, and I have a reading update for you. I have a rule with audiobooks that I can only listen to them while I take George for a walk, and so that motivates me to walk George. I'm breaking that rule because I'm almost done with Lobizona. It's so good. I don't want to stop, and so I'm gonna break my rule. I finished reading Lobizona yesterday and I love it. I love it. This week I've had a lot going on at work and it's been like really stressful. Just stressful. But like this has been the perfect thing to be reading, to just like escape from that and just like feel a little bit of like magic and fun in my life. It's a YA. It's about a girl who's a werewolf and she goes to school for like magical beings. So like obviously it's like really fun, really magical, but it does still hit on and like address some like really big real world topics, things like gender identity and immigration in the United States. It's just really good. It's really good. I feel like it balances those things really well and it like teaches you about those things in a really nice way that doesn't distract from the magic of it, you know? Since I finished that one, I did start reading the Graveyard Book last night. I'm liking it a lot. I don't know, like there are these like illustrations at the beginning of the chapters, which I did not realize, but I like that. I like that there are these like illustrations. I have only read the first chapter of this, so I'm not like too far into it. I'm liking it so far. I feel like this has just been a very successful start to my Halloween reading challenge thing, and I feel good about it. It's Monday, September 11th, and I have a reading update for you. Yesterday I went to the library and picked up this book and Coraline by Neil Gaiman, so I have 2 new books to add to my Halloween reading pile. I'm still reading The Graveyard Book. Each chapter is like its own little story. It's not like one big story. And I didn't realize that going into it. So I read the first chapter, then I read the second chapter, and then I started the third chapter, and I was like, at some point we need like some big thing to happen so that the rest of the book can cover like one big story. No, that's not what this book is like. And I think because of that, I'm kind of slowing down on The Graveyard Book. It's a very good book. It's written very well. I like the premise of it. I'm just not a huge fan of short stories. So I'm like trying to keep myself excited about reading. So I picked up this book last night and started reading The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches last night, just so I could read one big story rather than a bunch of short stories, right? And it's really cute. Based off of just the cover alone, I thought it was going to be primarily romance, but no. It turns out this girl, she's summoned to this house to train the witches. But instead of her falling in love with him and then realizing he comes with kids, she actually is like going to help the kids and then realizes that the kids come with him. Does that make sense? Does it make sense? There hasn't been much romance yet, and I'm okay with that. I'm not a huge fan of like contemporary romance. It's just, I need something more than just romance. So I'm liking this so far. I finished it. It got kind of unhinged at the end, and I was just sitting here giggling and tee-heeing at it because I'm just like, it's so fun. Okay, this book surprised me. I did not expect to like this book as much as I have liked this book. Reason number one, like I mentioned before, I thought it was going to be a romance. I'm not a huge fan of contemporary romance. It's like found family. That's the main theme of this book. There is some romance, so when the found family stuff and like the witch lessons and like those things, when those things start to like slow down a little bit and you're kind of wanting more, then you get some of the romance, and then that takes a back burner and you go back to witch lessons and stuff. It's a good balance of stuff. I liked it. So that's reason number one. Reason number two, this is a book about witches. About witches. I wasn't expecting to relate to these characters. I wasn't expecting to have some like deep, profound moments where I'm like, me too. Wow. I'm traumatized too. I was not expecting to have that with this book, but I love that books and stories can do that to you, especially the ones when you least expect it. So here's Mika. She's our main witch, our main character. When she's orphaned, she is taken in by this older witch, and this older witch teaches Mika that the only way to stay safe is to be alone. You can't ever trust anybody or let anybody know you're a witch. You just have to be alone. And that's what she's taught, and that's how she's raised. But obviously she throws that out the door because she goes to this house to teach three little witches how to control their powers. So she's breaking all the rules that she has been taught. After a few weeks of being at this house and teaching these young witches and making friends with the adults at this house, there's a line in here where she's kind of thinking, like, if I'm breaking all these rules, how come I feel safer and happier than I ever have been in my whole life? And that just hit me. I grew up being religious. I was taught that if I were to ever leave, that it was dangerous and that it was really bad and that I would just feel miserable and lonely and stuff. But like, the truth is, I don't go to church anymore and I feel safer and happier than I've ever been. So I feel like there were parts in this book that I just could really relate to, and I was not expecting to relate to anything that deeply in this book, but I did, and it surprised me and it made me happy, and it's amazing. This is why I love reading. Have I read any more of The Graveyard Book this week? No, I have not. I've just been reading this all week and I'm okay with that. I just struggle with short stories, so I don't want to pick this up because it's just a bunch of short stories. Like, short stories are too short for me. I want more, not just a bunch of little cute anecdotes about a boy living with some ghosts. I'm gonna finish this. I'll finish it sometime. But also, again, because I struggle with short stories, I've already started this one. I'm on like page 5, so I'm not very far, but I am reading Coraline. Coraline is gonna be my longer story that I read in between this one, theoretically. So right now, it's Neil Gaiman time, baby. Reading update. I finished Coraline last night. Read this in 24 hours. Wasn't too hard. This is like 150 pages. It's a short little book. And I think that's what my main complaint with Coraline is, that it's too short. It's too, like, I wish there was just more to it. I put Coraline on this list of Halloween books to read because I wanted to read something a little bit spooky, but like not too spooky, because it was so quick. It was over so quickly. Like, it just wasn't as spooky as I wanted it to be. A few weeks ago, I read The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman, and honestly, I feel like that one was spookier than Coraline. I don't know how old Coraline is supposed to be. Young enough that her dad can pick her up and carry her into the kitchen at the end of the book, but old enough that he doesn't do that all the time. And so I'm thinking like maybe she's like 8 or 9. And just thinking about myself when I was 8 or 9, I was not this mature. I was not this like level-headed. Like, if this happened to me when I was 8 or 9, I would be freaked out. When she goes back into this alternate universe and she has to save her parents, I'd be a lot more freaked out by all the things that were happening, and she doesn't seem to be fazed by the stuff. I wanted to like this a lot more. Those are my thoughts on Coraline. Hello, it's another Monday. It is Monday, September 18th, which means it is now the beginning of week 3 of this little Halloween reading marathon. I don't know what you want to call it. This week, my goal is to read Frankenstein and finish the Graveyard Book. I started Frankenstein last night. I read some more of the Graveyard Book yesterday. The story that I read from the Graveyard Book yesterday is my favorite that I've read so far. It's The Witch's Gravestone is the name of the little story, and I thought it was really sweet and cute. And there was like a little Easter egg in there for The Ocean at the End of the Lane, which it was kind of fun to see, considering I just read The Ocean at the End of the Lane a couple weeks ago, so I like to see that. Yesterday I was rearranging my list of books that I'm reading for this little Halloween reading extravaganza, because there are 2 books that I had on my original list that are not available at my local library, but I have heard of a couple of other books that I'd like to read. First is Our Hideous Progeny. It's based on Frankenstein. Victor Frankenstein's niece comes across this experiment that he did, and they decide, oh, I can do this better. So I'm gonna go to the library today and pick that up. I also want to watch Coraline, the movie, this week at some point, because I've never seen it all the way through, because I have a feeling that I might like the movie a little bit better. I just watched the movie Coraline, and I liked it better than the book for one main reason, and that is just that Coraline goes to the other world 3 or 4 times before the other mother tells her that she needs to give up her eyes in order to stay in the other world. It gave Coraline some time to like really fall in love with that other world, then makes the twists more impactful. It feels more manipulative, and therefore it feels more evil and spooky. And like another difference I noticed is that in the movie there's this boy, his grandma is related to one of the ghost children. There are like these little hints and things that like Coraline really should know not to go back to the other world, but even after hearing those like little hints and things, she goes back anyway, just because you see this hold that it has on her after she's been 2 or 3 times. I liked the movie a lot, and that's all I have to say. I'm gonna read some more and go to bed. I feel like there hasn't been much vlog to this reading challenge. I want to try and get better at that, and I figure I might as well start now. It's really cloudy and gloomy outside, and it's been like 60 degrees all day, so like officially, like really for real, feels like fall. I had a nice little catch up with a friend the other night. We started a book club, so that's book related. Yeah, I'm gonna try and get better about like including some more like personal and like non-book related clips and just like things in part 2 of this vlog. Let me know down in the comments below if you like the way I've done this, where I'm just talking about books in this vlog, or if you want there to be a little bit of other stuff mixed in. And yeah, I'm gonna read now. I finally finished the Graveyard Book, and it was good. It was really good. In the end, everything came together. So I'm glad I read the whole thing. The first 100 pages, first 4 chapters were just hard for me to get through because they felt very disconnected, and I didn't like that. I wanted everything to like be connected in some way. By the time I got to the start of chapter 4, I was kind of thinking like, do I want to finish this book? But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give this one more try. I'm gonna read this next chapter. After that chapter, I feel like things started to come together a little bit more. It took what, like 120 pages for things to start coming together and for me to start actually building momentum. Once we got there, I'm glad I did, because the ending, everything comes together. I enjoyed that. Just another thought that I've had. There's something that I just want to say about his writing. It's just like there's this spark. I don't know how else to say it. There's just this like spark about his writing that like even when he's writing about like normal, mundane human things that aren't very magical, it just like feels more magical, you know? I like it. It's very good. I want to read more Neil Gaiman because of that. It's Thursday, September 28th, and I'm here for another reading update because it's been a week. And when I say a week, I mean literally, but also I mean a week since I last updated you. Let me explain. My poor puppy dog, George, broke his arm over the weekend. And since that happened, I did not do any reading over the weekend. So I'm falling behind a little bit, but that is okay. That is okay. I'm gonna get back on track. We'll talk about that later. First, I do wanna say I've finished Frankenstein yesterday. If you've read Frankenstein, the big #1 theme is don't mess with death, don't mess with nature. Like that hit a lot harder to me now, reading it as a 25-year-old, than it did when I read it as a junior in high school. I'm at a place in life where I could have kids. I think about that a lot more now than I did as a 16-year-old. There was a line at the very beginning of Frankenstein, when Victor Frankenstein is talking about his background, his upbringing, what his childhood was like, right? Is talking about how his parents were fully prepared to have a kid when he was a kid. They gave him everything that they owed to him as parents. Saying it in that way, saying that as parents you owe your children a good life, you owe it to them. I don't know, it just really reinforced the gravity of that choice. And so that, if anything, reading Frankenstein just reaffirmed and validated where I'm at, which felt good because of where I live and the culture that I live in, I just feel pressure to do things that I'm not ready for. Thank you, Frankenstein. I've now read 6 books. Here are the 6 books I've read in this vlog in case you need a recap. I've had a lot of fun reading these books, and I've decided I want to read 13 books. 13 Halloween books before Halloween. This is it for now. I'm gonna do another vlog where I talk about 7 more Halloween books. One of those will be the follow-up to Frankenstein, Our Hideous Progeny. I'm excited about this one. I think it will be a lot of fun. So if you want to hear me talk about this along with these books, stick around. I'd love to have you watch my second Halloween reading vlog. So if you want to stick around, please click the subscribe button down below. And with all that said, thank you so much for watching this video, watching this vlog. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for listening to me ramble about books. I will see you in the next one. Bye.